Hi, welcome to the Practice Sports Coaching's YouTube channel. The presentation you're about to watch actually took place live at one of our sessions. So can I use this opportunity to invite you to come and join us? We meet every Tuesday and the details are on the screen. If you like this kind of content, can I encourage you to please hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell? That way you'll get notified whenever we release any new content. Let me not take too much of your time. Enjoy today's presentation, and I look forward to seeing you soon. So today we are talking about an important subject, being overwhelmed. I have to admit, I didn't really recognize how important a subject this was until several months ago. And I just found myself totally drained. I mean, I'm used to being tired. I'm used to like putting so much work in and just exhausting myself. But this time, I literally felt, I actually used the word overwhelmed. And that's so not like me. I'm like the typical guy. I'll just keep pushing through until I come out the other end. But at this point, I had to recognize that, wow, I am doing too much too often, is literally draining the life out of me, and I'm not as effective as I could possibly be. So I hope some of you recognize this, and the whole idea of today's presentation is to help you recognize it and recognize its effect, because if you don't, it will rob you of your potential, of your ability, of the possibilities and opportunities that are available to you. So what exactly is being overwhelmed? Being emotionally overwhelmed is just simply when you're beset with an intense emotion that makes it difficult to manage. And this comes about because you are literally burdened and buried by so much things you are not able to cope. I'll go back to my example because I like using myself so that I can share my own experience. I remember there was a time that I did, and this was maybe towards the end of last year. I can't remember, either towards the end of last year or early this year. At one point, I had like 15 meetings in 1 week. Now, some of the meetings, when I have my own client meetings, they typically take 90 minutes. And not all of it were my own client meetings. Some were meetings that are of groups that I'm part of, that I committed myself to. And I was going to this, I was doing that. It was all online. So I kind of thought it was easy. But the truth of the matter is, my goodness, literally one day I crawled out of my office into my bedroom because I didn't have the energy. And the problem was, I was doing all of this, but most of it wasn't even making me money. Most of it wasn't even about my business. Most of it wasn't about things that will, help me move forward in things that I want to do. And what I discovered was I didn't have the clarity of mind to be able to think about the important things that relate to me. I became so overwhelmed that I would sit on my desk and it became so difficult to actually find the motivation to do the things that I needed to do. So it became far too much to be able to cope with. And the thing about being overwhelmed is, yes, it starts off with, that intense emotion, but it doesn't just affect you emotionally, it affects you physically to the point that you can actually become sick because you're too overwhelmed. This has to be either yesterday or the day before. I was doing one of the things I normally do. I was just listening to an online American show that was going on, and this guy, a finance guy, was, he would get calls coming and people would tell him their problems and he would try and coach them and help them around it. And this young lady called, she's like 29 years old, and she calls and she says, listen, me and my partner, we have over $1 million of debt. Now, when I heard that, and she said she was like 29 years old, And the guy asks, how old is your partner? And he's 32. So you've got a 32 and a 29-year-old have accumulated over $1 million in debt. And the guy goes into, so where is all this debt from? Well, 200,000 is a mortgage, and they've got students loan, which account for another 300,000. But a lot of the debt was like credit cards, personal loans, leases, store cards, and all of that. And you can imagine the way she was talking, you could tell that all this expense they got and debt they got themselves into has gotten to a point that they're now drowning in their debt. They don't have the clarity of mind to be able to say, how do we begin to fix $1 million worth of debt? How do you even begin to start with that? And things, especially, in terms of relationship and finances, those are some of the things that can come and be so strong and overwhelming that it affects your ability to do something. The truth of the matter is, anybody in any set of circumstances can be overwhelmed. You being overwhelmed is not a sign that you are weak. Anybody can be overwhelmed. I'm sure I must have been overwhelmed several times in my life, but I really recognized it this last year by just how draining I felt because of all the balls I was trying to juggle in the air. And it just got to a point I had to make some drastic decisions to just cut myself loose from many of it. It can sometimes be difficult to recognize when you're overwhelmed because you're in it, you're stuck in it. You're doing 1,001 different things, not getting the results you want, not having the calmness of mind to think, to decide what direction you want to take your life into, so you then become overwhelmed. And the thing about being overwhelmed, I find for me personally, is it literally paralyzes me. I don't have the clarity of mind to even begin to decide what to do next. I feel like I've got too much to do, so little time to do it in. And sometimes that feeling of being overwhelmed is often a symptom of anxiety itself. Let's look at some of the effects of being overwhelmed. Firstly, it affects your ability to even have the calmness of mind to think. You've got 1,000,001 different things running through your mind, especially if you are suffering from, if you have financial issues. And I know financial issues because I've worked in a bank, and I myself, I've had my own personal financial challenges myself. And I know that sometimes when you're trying to juggle here, rock pieces to pay Paul, trying to do this, trying to do that, and you're not getting any headway, it just affects your ability to think. And if you cannot think, you don't have the clarity of mind to be able to make the decisions that you need to make so that you can move in the direction that you want to move in. It affects your ability to be rational, and even the simplest of tasks, you find it challenging and difficult to do. Oh, I can attest to that. The very simple, even to send an email, when you're overwhelmed, to send an email will take you 2-3 hours. And it's not what you want to put in the email, it's challenging. It's just that your emotions, your mind is just full of 1,000,001 things that you need to do and you don't know how to get it done. It'll affect your memory, your ability to remember things. It'll affect your focus. Not being able to focus on the things that you need to do. It'll affect your logical thinking, problem solving, and also your ability to concentrate. So that's some of the effects being overwhelmed can have on you. What are the symptoms? Firstly, physically. Being overwhelmed will affect you physically. You will burn out. You will lack the energy. You'll feel nausea, get headaches, tense muscles, pains. Or the one that I recognize is the rapid heart rate. Your heart starts beating so fast. I've got my watch on, and I remember during that time, I didn't even know my watch did this. An alarm suddenly went off on my watch, indicating that my heart rate was far too high, and I wasn't doing anything. I was sat down, but my watch was warning me that my heart rate, I think it got in something like about 180, 190 beats per minute. And it was warning me something's not right there. You can get high blood pressure and have trouble sleeping. So that's how it can affect you physically. Emotionally, you get anxiety. You become easily angered and irritable. You feel helpless. You have panic attacks. You find yourself crying, lashing out, low self-esteem, restlessness. When it comes to your behavior, you'll find yourself, you'll isolate yourself. Oh, that's a common one because you're overwhelmed. It's easy to just run away and lock yourself away so that nobody knows, what's going on with you. You isolate yourself. You'll find that your performance declines. You have eating disorders. A lot of people will excessively use tobacco, drugs, or alcohol, and then you struggle to get along with other people. And finally, psychological forgetfulness, impaired concentration. You worry all the time. Your judgment is impaired. You have anxiety, and you have negative and unwanted thoughts. So how do you begin to manage the feeling of being overwhelmed? Now, this is just my point of view. It'll be great to get yours, and your perspective might be totally different. One of the things I realized one has to do is you've got to acknowledge and recognize that feeling of being overwhelmed. The worst thing you can do is lie to yourself. One of the things I've noticed when I work with businesses, I was on a call yesterday, and a woman was saying to me, I'm making money, but I don't know where my money is going. I'm doing so much. I'm here, I'm there, I'm running, I'm in 4 different locations. I'm doing a lot of things, but I don't even know if I'm making money. I just know I have no time in the day for my family, for the things that I want to do, because I've got 1,000,000,001 things going on. She was simply overwhelmed. And even if you're in business and you're profitable, you can feel overwhelmed. So it's important to acknowledge and recognize it. I'm not a breathing person, but I do know you have to stop. You have to take a deep breath, and you have to step away. You cannot begin to take control if you don't stop, take a breath, and step away. You have to know what you can control. Know what you can control. And that's so important, because you cannot control every single thing. You just have to know what it is that you can control. You've got to stop trying to do too many things at once. It just doesn't work. You got to take things one step at a time. Joe, I'll come to you in a second. You've got to develop a simple plan. And one of the things when I'm thinking of a simple plan, I want to focus on the things that are needed first. I don't have to try and solve everything today. What do I need to do? I need to develop a plan, but the focus has to be on things that I need to do first. Then I've got to take an action. And I always try and do the things that at least will give me a sense of pleasure. I get pleasure in achieving goals. So I'll find something that I can easily do and can succeed in. And lastly, speak to someone. Get support. That is so important. And I'm hoping today that in our sessions that we'll have a conversations with one another. We'll be open, we'll be honest, so that we can get the support that we want. So for our coaching sessions, this is what I want us to do. Share with us your last, or if you currently feel overwhelmed, the current experience of being overwhelmed. What was it like for you when you last felt overwhelmed? Or if you're currently feeling overwhelmed, what's going on right now? Also, what impact did it have on you? This is so important. So share with us your last experience. What impact did it have on you? And what is your plan of action, or what will you do if it occurs again?